the amount of money that's involved for eviction is often less than $1,500, $1,000, and they just can't pay it, and they get thrown out. And, you and I could pay for it, and so there should be, and we have now done it, to have some help from the city, to get them through that situation.
So the Staten Island News Organization is here today with Professor Peter Edelman. Professor Edelman is currently the Carmack Waterhouse Professor of Law and Public Policy at Georgetown University Law Center, where he teaches constitutional law and poverty law, and is faculty director of the Georgetown Center on Poverty and Inequality at Georgetown University Law. He has written extensively on the topics of poverty and inequality in America, including the books So Rich, So Poor, Why It's So Hard to End Poverty in America, and Not a Crime to Be Poor, The Criminalization of Poverty in America. He has served in all branches of government, including as a legislative assistant to Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and as issues director for Senator Edward Kennedy's presidential campaign in 1990. During the Clinton administration, he filled various roles, including counselor to HHS Secretary Donna Shalala and then Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. He famously resigned from the Clinton administration upon the passage of the 1996 welfare reform legislation known as TANF, which has had disastrous and often hidden effects on the real, actual poor people in America, although it may look good on paper. So it's a pleasure again to have you with us, Professor Edelman. So I wanted to move on to the eviction topic. So you had mentioned in your book about the criminalization of homelessness. How have some states criminalized homelessness, and what does that actually mean for the homeless population in those states?
Well, in a lot of places, there are laws that you can't sleep outside. So what I was saying is that people who don't have any place to live in many cities, they say that if they just try to sleep in a park or anywhere out, that is a breaking a law, and they take them in and put them in jail. So from their point of view, they don't want people out there messing up everything. So what they think. Now there is one case that was originally in Idaho, but it then was picked up by the whole part. This is under the federal and constitutional. That therefore in California, all that whole area there, that's unconstitutional, but it never went up to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So you have, in other words, you do have a good thing in that one part of the country, but it's not national to protect people.
Right.
And so, in city after city, they take people and they essentially throw them out of the city. They do make it, they bother them so much that one way or another, they just, have to work around it. But they also can be put into a jail.
So what are some of the eviction policies that you have seen which unfairly target low-income people?
Oh gosh, you mean in general?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's so many different things, you know, problems that people deal with money one way or another, that they owe money, and people who have difficulty with it makes it whatever it is to make it worse. You know, and health, people low income, if they don't have, you know, if they have Medicaid or something like that, obviously it can be pretty good. But you know, just everything. You know, there's a Supreme Court case, for example, about having bought in a place outside of a big city, to have buses to take to children to school, except that you had to pay for it. And the Supreme Court said, tough luck. They have the power to have that thing, and if you can't get there because you can't pay for it, too bad. But that's you know, that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave the wrong answer. So you know, you just go almost everything that you can think of. If you're low income, you are worse. You know, if they owe a little bit money of something in any way, because they're low income and they can't just pay it right away, they get hit with high percent. You know, you owe 20% or 30% or something like that. So low income is, in definition, is they don't have much money. But on the other side, it makes it living for so many ways to make it even worse.
Right, right. So yeah, what I was actually kind of thinking of was, there's a state that I can't remember what state it is, where if a person hasn't paid their rent in 4 days, they can call the marshal. I think it was the marshal. It might have been the sheriff or the something like that, but it was either the sheriff or the marshal, and they can lock the door, lock the person out with all their possessions inside, and they can't get their stuff.
Yeah.
And they've been evicted, and
Well,
that's it. And they have 5 days.
Yes. Well, that's typical. I don't know where it's 4 hours, 4 days, or whatever it is, but that's typical. And
that is typical in the U.S. It's typical to have like a really short process of, if you don't pay in a very short amount of time, you're just evicted.
yes, and you know, I can't tell you what city is terrible and one is not. In D.C., we have been working on that in a variety of ways. We've have for one thing, now there's some money in the city, although they took away some of it, but to have money, you know, the amount of money that people, and this relates to what we just talked about, the amount of money that's involved for eviction is often less than $1,500, $1,000, and they just can't pay it, and they get thrown out. And, you know, you and I could pay for it, and so there should be, and we have now done it, to have some help from the city, to get them through that situation. And we're also working at getting it groups of community people around the neighborhoods when the people would know that in their area there's a place to go um, to help them on things uh, beyond what I said of helping them on the money, but sometimes it's some other thing that's making a problem that they have in the family, and to get just help people to to go through it and get through it. So we certainly have people still being evicted, but at least we're working, I think, in the right direction to so that they're not thrown out. Because when somebody, the cost, not only to the family but really other aspects, police, other people are essentially using money to running the government in the very ways in which peoples are hurt, and then people have health problems as a result of that. For example, if the family gets thrown out, having your house and keeping your home, is so fundamental, and we just don't really think about the consequences of making it too easy to throw people out.
Right. I mean, like, for myself, coming from New York City, I know that in New York City, tenants have a ton of rights. So if the landlord wants to evict someone, they have to hire a lawyer. They have to take the person to court. That can take a month to 2 months for the court date to come by. And then almost every judge will give almost every tenant 2 whole months to leave their house. Now, the only problem with that is that then that makes they have a database of everybody who's been involved with this system of eviction, and there are landlords who then check this database and will reject a person outright for having been evicted and or possibly exercising their rights. So I guess that was why it was so shocking for me to see that that's not the case in a lot of these other states, that a lot of these other states, there are no tenants' rights.
That's right.
Yeah. So how does the policies of eviction, how does this affect, whether by increasing or decreasing the overall levels of poverty and homelessness in those states?
Say again.
So how do these eviction policies affect, whether by increasing or decreasing the overall levels of poverty and homelessness in those states with those kinds of eviction policies?
Well, it goes up, and in general, it's happening in the country generally. So. In the states that are more blue, if you were to go to Minnesota or the state of Washington and et cetera, what you said about New York City, California, you'll find people being more supportive. In the red states, Mississippi, but as far and big ones like Texas, it's going to be the other way. That's the general thing. It's also true that bigger cities, in general, get more better than people in small places. Now, in small places, they may just know other people and help, but you're going to get reasonable stuff in, name the big cities, Portland, Oregon, etc. But there's just too many places around where it goes the other way.
And you kind of touched on this. What effect do poor eviction policies have on low-income people? Does it make their lives significantly more difficult? And if so, in what ways?
Well, it's terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. We talked about homelessness. That's the sort of, in one sense, obvious, because they're literally on the street, and they're some of them have lost where they lived, but they're homeless for a variety of things. They have other kinds of problems and so on. But then the bigger thing is people who do go somewhere, they go to somebody in another family or something like that. But it's still horrible. Terrible for kids. There's a considerable working in Milwaukee. There's a book about how everything, how bad it is. But it's a lot of places. It just ruins people's lives. That's fundamentally, that's what it does.
Right. And you kind of touched on some examples of states with very damaging eviction policies. So basically, the red states have like no tenants' rights in general. Do you have any example of states with really damaging eviction policies? And the states obviously with the beneficial effect eviction policies would be like California, like you
Yeah.
just said, Minnesota, I think you said.
Well, yes, but I'm really just speaking generally, and so I don't know, whether Mississippi is worse than Alabama or so on, except they're both terrible. And I don't know. I mean, Mississippi's just terrible, but in Alabama are the cities there. I don't know the details. I'm just not, I just don't.
Okay. So what are some solutions that you have proposed to solve the problems with eviction where eviction is a problem in the U.S.?
Well, the thing is, one question is how much more the national government could create laws that are national. But if you're getting, but particularly now where the House is awful now, and even before the Senate, as you know, did some really good things, but the last two senators wouldn't do things that 48 would do, but they couldn't do 50. And so therefore it's hard to get stronger things through national laws. And then you're talking about what states will be strong. And that goes through what we said before. If it's like Minnesota, that's one thing. And also specifically Minneapolis and St. Paul, there in because they can do it either in the city or the county. And, just imagine that there are Wyoming or whatever else is not interested. And that's, I'm speaking rather generally, but and the other thing that's happening, unfortunately, you take a place like Iowa, that was a Democratic for a long time, and now it's very, very red. And again, Des Moines might be, I don't know, I know nothing about it, but maybe they're doing something there just in that city that's okay, that's good. But I can tell you that, Iowa was, was very Democratic, and now it's very Republican, and their ideas are 100% different.
Okay.
And it's the same, and it's in Kansas, it's in Nebraska. I'm old enough to know when we had Democrats in all those places, and they're gone. And it changes for the views of the low income people.
Right. Which are, so like when the politics changes, then the perception of low income people changes as well. So when a state changes from blue to red, then the policies that they have become a lot more stringent on people who are low income because of their perception of low income people, like we had discussed the last time, as being lazy or it being their own fault and things like that.
Yeah, and we have to be. You never know where in a particular place there happens to be somebody on a particular subject, and for that reason is better on some aspect. But the general thing that's happened in the country is so much more of the country has gotten to be in a conservative way, and which includes what happens to low income people. Yes.
Okay. Well, that was all of my questions for today, but it was really great to meet with you again, Professor. And I will definitely let you know when the videos have posted, and if you have any questions or anything like that, if you think of anything else that you wanted to add, you can always definitely reach out to me.
Well, I hope this is helpful. I'm glad to do it. And anyway, nice to talk to you today again.
It was good to talk to you too. Thank you so much. And I'm going to end the call on my side, so it'll just end on your side.
Okay, very
Unless
good.
there was anything else you wanted to add.
No, that's fine.
Okay. It was great meeting you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.